and welcome to the first podcast I've had in a while. I've been in a little bit of a creative funk lately, actually, if you want to call that. Maybe it's not so much a creative funk, it's just a side effect of whatever is happening to myself. But anyways, I'm not going to get into meditation stuff in this one, but just know that it has to do with meditation. And so I've been wondering how I'm going to be doing videos for a while, and I came across this quote actually while I was trying to come up with content, and I actually wonder if maybe moving forward I might just go over quotes and relate them to chronic illness. I've had a very big fascination with quotes for a really long time. I actually have a lot of posters that are like inspirational quotes that I bought while I was in university. But I found this one particular quote because not only does it have to do with having chronic illness, but it has to do with my journey right now too. The quote that I want to cover today is, sometimes you have to let go of the picture of what you thought life would be like and learn to find joy in the story you are actually living. This is by Rachel Marie Martin. This quote I found actually on a website that I use sometimes because people like to ask their questions that I don't think of and all of that on this website. It's called The Mighty, and it has a really good community if you're kind of looking for more community with chronic illness in particular. There's a bunch of different communities within that bubble. So I found this quote and it really spoke to me, not only on the chronic illness side of it, which it very much applies, but it also applies in the letting go that happens with non-duality. With chronic illness, when you're young, you have so many dreams of what you think you might want to do. Having a period of illness shakes this to the core. I got sick when I was in my last semester of university, so it meant that chapter ended there. I've been lucky to have had this get to the point where if I truly probably did want to pursue my biochemistry degree, I honestly probably could go back and do something with it at this point. I feel like I'm healthy enough. However, that being said, this may not be an option, and the reason why I say this is because it's one of the reasons why I've considered going into pharmacy technician schooling, but I think it would be a major hurdle, and that is where I'm currently working, this medication is 100% covered, and if I was to quit working enough hours a week, it would mean I would lose my insurance and therefore no longer be able to afford the medication. In a way, I still think this is true, that pursuing any further education at this point, number one, I'm not interested in it, but number two, I don't know how to word this, but not only am I not interested in it, I don't think it's an option because it would make the medication that allows me to be this functional no longer affordable for me. It's unfortunate, but it's the truth. As I was saying, having a period of illness shakes this idea that you can do whatever you want to its core, because you end up getting sick and you no longer can function at the high level that, society just expects when you're in your early 20s or even just your 20s in general. As I was saying, I got sick in my last semester of university. I was actually 3 weeks or 4 weeks into that last semester. I had actually, I think, been not feeling well. Like I got some type of virus over the Christmas break. And then when I got back, I was doing quite well. And then all of a sudden I wasn't. I've talked about that in my earlier videos. They are extremely rough. I don't like watching them. Because of when I got sick, it kind of ended that particular chapter. And I've talked a little bit about that over the course of my sharing my own story. Chronic illness took away a lot of my independence when it was at its worst. I could barely take care of myself due to fatigue and feeling like I might pass out frequently. I still have periods of vertigo and dizziness, often as a warning sign of an incoming migraine. For me now, the things that continue to affect me are things like fatigue, pain, vertigo and dizziness. Those are kind of the main symptoms that I often have. There's sometimes light sensitivity, sometimes changes in vision depending on what type of migraine I might be getting and the severity of the migraine. But overall, those general symptoms that I deal with every day are the fatigue, dizziness, vertigo, especially if I happen to accidentally bend over, or kind of those, chronic pain type things. So, there's things that slow me down, but are not to the point where they're completely affecting me. Chronic illness also means that your body just doesn't have the energy it used to, and you can't get away with doing as much as you once did. I'd emphasize this a lot, so I won't say anything more except to watch my other videos. So I've talked extensively about how fatigue affects me with having migraines, and I've talked about how that continues even though I'm not in a migraine every single day. I feel like I've kind of pushed this topic to the very max at this point, but it is one of the things that does continue to affect me. So today, although I'm filming, I am quite tired just because of the schedule I've had lately, and you learn to adjust over time to this reduced level of ability to have energy. You kind of have to push through it to a certain point in order to not completely lose your ability to do the things you want to do. And it sometimes means figuring out what works for your body, figuring out what is going to work for your body, and it's a trial and error at the same time. It takes a lot of time and a lot of experimentation to figure out what actually works. Just like with life, having a chronic illness involves good days and bad days. I'm extremely happy with where I'm at because good days far outnumber the bad days. The bad days still happen though, and it takes a lot of work to not have a bundle of bad days. So what I'm getting at here is that I have good days and I have bad days, just like with life. You have good days, you have bad days. But as long as your good days are outnumbering your bad days, I feel like that's when you've kind of found that harmonious balance to a certain point. So this is when you can kind of be at peace with the situation. Now, when I was at my worst, I was dealing with almost I would say 80 to 90% what I would call bad days these days. So you can't expect someone to be constantly in a state of illness and be okay with it. Now, that being said, you can't expect something that doesn't have 100% of a cure to mean that you never have another bad day with that illness again. I think that's where it becomes kind of unfair. People just never want to deal with the symptoms again, and you're not cured, so you're still gonna have symptoms, but it's how many good days versus bad days are you having, and that's where the Aimovig has pushed me from I'm having this many bad days to this many good days, and now the good days are outweighing those bad days, which is all I ever wanted. Not to mention the fact that I can now do and have the routine that I wanted to when I was also at my worst. So that's really important too. Like I said, the bad days still do happen though, and it does take a lot of work to not have a bundle of bad days. I work on my lifestyle factors. I do my meditation. I make sure I'm trying to eat as healthy as I can. I have to maintain my weight, which means often saying no to some of the things that other people can say yes to because they're not as concerned about it. You're not going to have 100% good days. That's not true with chronic illness. That is not true with life. It's not fair to expect that. Many people don't realize this, but chronic illness involves a grieving process. I have talked about this before, but to summarize it, you will grieve what you have lost while hopefully finding acceptance along the way. Letting go of that picture of what you thought life would be like and then accepting where you are now is exactly the process you go through as you go through this grieving process with chronic illness. And you will go through every single step of the grieving process: denial, anger, loss, sadness. And then when you've come to accept where you are, finally acceptance. And that acceptance may be like losing a close thing in your life. It may not be a full acceptance of this is okay, but you've accepted where you're at. And maybe some people never reach that. I don't know. But I know for me, letting go and accepting this now has been the most important thing for me. None of us want to have a chronic illness or chronic pain. We want to be a contributing member of society and be able to execute the plans we had in mind. Sometimes life has other plans though, and I have found accepting what this has been to be truly freeing. So what I'm saying with this is that you may not be able to fulfill the dreams that you had before. It might be the reality. You gotta let go of that. It may end up opening other doors though too. So sometimes those other plans can be actually more freeing in the end. Like, what our minds picture as being the ideal life of what we think we want may not always end up being what is actually meant to be. I know this comes with some philosophy that some people may not agree with, which is, the thing is, can you choose your own destiny? Do we actually have freedom of choice? And, do we really choose anything in the end? Now, I have to admit, I think that things work out the way they're supposed to. I don't think we make any choices at all. I think things are kind of a little bit more set, and that if things are meant to be, it'll work out, and what our minds think we might want may not be what we actually want in the end. It's a very complicated thing that I could probably spend a whole video on, honestly. We don't end up choosing anything. It ends up choosing us. We end up being on this path because life set up the circumstances for it to happen. It's really complicated to explain, but that's kind of what I'm trying to get at. Another reason why I absolutely love this quote is that it acknowledges that this is a story. Having a chronic illness for me has become just that. It's only part of my story. It doesn't define who I am in any way, and it has taught me lessons, but it's not my identity at all. There's another popular quote that kind of means like, if you're in a bad chapter of your life, it's not the whole thing, even though in the moment it very much feels like it. I love this quote because it acknowledges this situation as a story and that it's only part of that particular story. It doesn't define who I am in any way at all. Like, it's not my whole identity. It's part of who I am, but it's not the entire thing. And I think that's where people get tripped up, because it feels like it's your whole life when it's at its worst, but it's truly not. It's just part of that chapter of your life. And although, because migraines have no cure, because of that particular fact, you're going to be carrying it with you for the rest of your story, it shouldn't define or end up being the complete end of it, basically. This acceptance is really, really, really important, that it shouldn't be defining everything that you are, basically. This quote is so critical, though, in so many ways. Like, it spoke to me in so many ways. You guys could probably find your own meaning in this quote as well, but that's just what I wanted to talk about today, how this is ultimately not everything, and although it can change your life path and end and close some doors, it does open others, and you have to kind of be able to let go of the things that chronic illness takes away from you in the end. Now, like I said, guys, this is going to come from a lot of period of not only self-evaluation and introspection, but it's going to come with time. If you're at the very start of this journey, I think it's very important to feel those very first emotions that you have. Like, the going through that first initial process, you can't just jump to acceptance right away, because those feelings do and will eventually come up again. So this is kind of more for you guys who are more along this path, which is not what I like to gear this stuff towards, but it is hopefully a place that you will get to in the end if you are more at the start of this journey. It'll be very difficult to watch this video. You probably won't make it very far if you're very early in this journey. I know I probably wouldn't have, because I was so angry at the universe when I was first diagnosed with this. I was relieved in a way because I had been looking for a diagnosis for so long, but at the same time, I was so angry because I, number one, knew it wasn't in my head at that point. So there was a little bit of anger and frustration with that and the way I was treated. But it's a big thing in your life because when you get sick like this, everything revolves around it. Like, you're constantly going to doctor's appointments, you're constantly getting blood tests, scans, and all of that. So in the moment, it can feel like everything. But yeah, I think the point I'm trying to make with this is that hopefully we all reach a point of acceptance and a letting go of the point of living where we're at in that particular moment. If you're struggling, know that we are with you. And if you're having a bad day, know that that bad day won't last forever. Although things appear in the moment to be forever, they're not. If you're looking to follow me, you can do so across social media. You can find me on Instagram at Awareness with Ashley, on TikTok at Awareness with Ashley, on Facebook at Ashley Stewart, and on Twitter at Ashley Stewart 94. So like I said, things are going to be changing a little bit with the content. I'm hoping to put out more vlogs actually to kind of Facebook and YouTube. The podcast is actually available via video to local supporters. So what I'm going to be doing with these podcasts is mainly filming them for short video content, but I'm going to be also trying to put out more supporter only content. And so I think the best way for me to do this right now is to give them the full version of the video on locals and then just release the audio version of the podcast publicly in full length. This will hopefully push people more towards the podcast too. And then as for like video content, I'm hoping to do some more vlogging, kind of more talking about when I might be feeling a little bit rougher and all of that. And then using these videos that are made from the podcast as short videos. So they will eventually get put up in kind of clips. I end up using a lot of my clips because I end up liking kind of how they turn out in the end. And I release short videos every single day, so I go through my short videos actually quite fast, but I'm really far behind because of the amount of podcast material that I have, so this probably won't be up for quite a while, but we'll see. Again, if you're wanting to support me and get these videos in the full video version, you can follow me on locals. That being said, I don't really know how to use this because YouTube has a new thing that you can actually release podcasts so that it streams on YouTube Music. And so if I do that though, then I'm releasing the full video version to YouTube as well. So maybe what I might do actually is end up releasing it for only local supporters and then YouTube for now, but I haven't quite decided that. So we'll see moving forward. But thanks for joining me for this week's podcast, and I hope you enjoyed it. Bye for now.